right, good morning, Soul Revival. I love Seventh-day Slumber. I love them. I grew up, I listened to rock music growing up, and being able to find Christian rock that I can relate to, like Seventh-day Slumber and Red and all them, even some Crowder, it makes the K-Love stuff a little bit better. That's just my personal opinion. I didn't like boy bands and all that stuff growing up, so that's where I'm at. Guys online, I'd like to welcome you and thank you for joining us this morning. Please, if you're seeing this on another page or if you're just sitting and watching in your living room and you're seeing it on our page, like, share, and follow these videos. The reason being is you never know what part of group that you're a part of on Facebook that you'll share these videos to, that it may resonate with someone. And you may be firm in your walk, but they may not. They may be struggling with addiction, and you may not. And seeing these videos that you've shared to other groups for us could help change their lives. Hey guys, I do want to thank the guy yesterday who hooked us up with a really nice basketball arcade game. And I want to thank you guys for your tithes and offerings, because without y'all, that would have never been able to be made possible. Some of the other stuff that we're looking to get in there will not be possible without you guys partnering with us. Someone calls us to get into a rehab because they are struggling with addiction. Will not be made possible if it wasn't for folks like you and for donating and partnering with us. And you may feel like, well, all I've got that I can send is $5. Every little bit counts, guys. I mean, every little bit counts. We still have our normal monthly bills, and, I have faith in God that He will always provide. He would not have given us this building, the vision, all the contents of it, to let us fail. So I trust 100% that God will always provide those monthly needs for us. He knows what we need. And He'll make sure it's there. But guys, to reach the youth of this community, we can't stand against a shovel and pray for a hole, as Pastor Chris says. We can't. We've got to get out there and, not only do we have to get out there and hit the street, and you guys that are the youth that's already a part of us, we need y'all's help as well. Y'all can reach these kids better than we can. Y'all know how to talk to y'all's friends better than we do. All it takes is one invite. You never know what saying, hey man, come sit with me at church might do for someone. They may be like, okay. You may have to ask 100 times. But eventually they might say okay. Now, guys online, I'm going to ask at this moment, Robert, when I get ready to pray over the offering, I'm going to ask that you take the basket around. Guys online, please partner with us. Go to www.soulrevivalbiblechurch.com. You can scan the QR code on that page, or if you're doing it from your phone, I know it's hard to scan the code while you're on the phone, but you can scroll down to the bottom of the page and there's a link to donate and partner with us. You guys, we've got a lot of stuff coming up. Next couple of weeks, we've got the Youth Build Day to build out this back room for them. You guys, youth, don't forget, you're all the ones going to be putting into work, so you might want to get some friends to come in and help you. Yeah. Like, I love showing people the gifts that God has blessed me with to be able to build things. I love passing that down to other people. And to see the joy on a kid's face when you put a skill saw or a drill in their hand. I know that may sound, a little corny to some people, but if you pay attention to their face, I don't care if they're a boy or a girl, they love it. Or tape measure. Now, I can't read a tape measure properly, but I know enough to get by. I can read it good enough for myself. I know when me and Robert was working on the tiny house, he said, like, man, you got to count the little. No, I ain't taking time to do that. I'll tell you, I need 5.5 minus a 16th. Works for me. But guys, I'm going to pray over this offering. Guys online, again, go to www.soulrevivalbiblechurch.com. Partner with us. You never know whose life you may change by what you can donate. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for this morning. I thank you for this family. I thank you for the many blessings. I thank you for the youth. I thank you for the opportunities that you've given us to be able to reach the souls that we have. And God, I just pray that we don't miss any other opportunities to reach other souls. God, as we take up this offering, I just ask that you make us good stewards of it. Give us a clear-cut sign as to what we should do with it, the things that we should buy to bring in the youth and to attract them to be able to spread your message to them and show them your love. And God, I just pray traveling mercies over Pastor Chris and Miss Renee as they travel in your name to St. Mary's, Pennsylvania for Soul Stock. And I just ask that you work through Pastor Chris. Let him touch as many souls as he can for you, Lord. We give you all the glory because we know without you, God, we would be nothing. And God, at this moment, I just ask you just empty me completely of me and fill me full of you. Give me the words to convey this message that you've given me, because this message definitely wasn't anything of me. So God, at this moment, I just ask that you just empty me completely of me and fill me full of you so that I can get this message across for you, Lord, to the people that it needs to reach. And God, I just ask that you empty every man, woman, and child seeing this message in-house or online of themselves. Open their hearts, their ears, their eyes, and their minds, Lord, to you. And I pray these things in the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Amen. All right, guys. Another subject I want to touch on before I jump into this is our Bible studies. Don't forget, every Sunday you got Robert back there. I watch his Bible studies, and I love the way he does it and the way he conveys it, because he's reaching people that, if they're anything like how I was, they feel like they can't relate to some people. And Robert can relate to a lot of those people, and I thank him for it. And then we got Maritza doing the women's Bible study on Saturdays. I'll be back there doing one for Monday. And then also, every Friday, we got the Hope Dealers podcast. Guys online, I implore you to join in and watch these things. We've got an email address set up. We've got our phone number set up. If you know someone that's struggling with addiction, call that phone number. If you have questions about addictions or questions about certain subjects of addiction that you want us to go over, email them. It's hopedealers.srbc@gmail.com. Email us these questions. We'll touch on them while we're back there filming it. It's each week we're touching in on hard subjects that a lot of people, they just don't think about. Like this week it was, is addiction a choice or a disease? Or is it hereditary? Which was what Pastor Chris threw in there, and we kind of touched on it, and we've came to the conclusion that it is all three. It is all three. So I just ask that you like, share, and follow those. Share the Hope Dealers podcast as much as possible. Now, guys, this week, we've been pretty busy at work, and I do this bivocationally. I work my normal 40-hour-a-week job, but generally turns out to be more than 40. And a lot of times, by the time I get off work, I'm so worn out and I'm tired. But during the daytime, I am given the opportunity to be in constant prayer with the Lord. And this subject here, he hit me with it yesterday. What I thought he was wanting me to go over, and what I thought he was wanting me to do, when I got done with that one, I heard Bible study. So I had spent all week working on the Bible study. And then I realized that I hadn't touched on today's service. But it's okay, because when God gives you a subject and he wants you wants you to touch on it, he's going to download into you, and he's going to lead you to what he wants you to say. So I want you guys to understand, I'm going to be talking about pride today and the different forms of it. This isn't anything of me. Everything that I have written down and that I speak on, it all has come from God. Because we all struggle with pride. I mean, to show you to the extent of how we struggle with pride, even while he was giving me this, I didn't want to do it. The key word there is I. That's prideful. The word I, when referring to yourself, a lot of times it stems back to something prideful. Whether it's a pitiful prideful or it's a I'm better than prideful. So pride and sinful pride makes a person think more of themselves than they ought to, with no recognition of or appreciation of the gifts one has received from God. You know, guys, there's not a thing in my life now that isn't a gift from God, and I wholeheartedly believe that. There's not a thing that's happened since I went to rehab. Even the act of going to rehab was a gift of God. Before I went to the rehab, the first thing I had to do was I had to swallow my pride and ask for help. That pride was holding me back in my addiction. But the moment I swallowed it, it was like, God, I need help. I can't do this on my own. I can't stop. He sent 2 people to me that did all the footwork and everything else to get me into the rehab. You know, there's a lot of verses throughout the Bible that mention pride as a sin that God hates. And some say pride is the root of the first sin when Eve ate the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden. You know, when the serpent approached Eve, he said, God really didn't say that, did he? You surely won't die if you touch this fruit. And she looked at him and she was like, you know what, you must be right. And he said to her, the only reason why God don't want you to touch it is because then your eyes will be open to good and evil, and you'll be like him. And she said, oh, that sounds like a good idea. She took a bite of it, handed it to Adam. Adam took a bite of it. Now we have first sin. And pride is also seen as the opposite of humility. And some Bible verses say that pride leads to the destruction of and disgrace. Now in Proverbs 6:16 through 19, it says, these are 6 things that the Lord hates. Yes, 7 are an abomination to him. The first thing is a proud look, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that are swift in running to evil, a false witness who speaks lies, and one who sows discord amongst brethren. While I was doing this, I got to thinking to myself, I like to see, how many times, we all know fear is mentioned in the Bible. Over 365 times, where it's like right at 365 times. So it tells us not to fear at least once for every day of the year. Pride, depending on the translation that you're reading, is mentioned 49 to 58 times in the Bible. And to me, once it's mentioned more than 3 times, it's kind of something that you might want to pay attention to. One of my favorite Bible verses has to do with pride. In Mark chapter 7, verses 21 through 23, it says, for it is from within, out of a person's heart, that evil thoughts come. Sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, pride, and folly. All these evils come from inside and defile a person. We've all been around or talked to someone that just everything, it was I did this, I did that. And as we watch those people and we talk to those people, after a while it kind of gets boring and it gets old, and then you don't want to hang around those people. The prideful people of this world, you look at people nowadays, the pride that's on social media with all the selfies and the videos. I made over $100,000 this month playing Slot Kings or whatever these online games are. You know, they reach down into pride. The selfies. God, the selfies. That is the most prideful thing that I think anybody can do, especially on social media, is when they're sitting there and you constantly see them. Everywhere they go, they've got their phone. They've got to take a picture of themselves at the bar. They've got to take a picture of themselves with their friends getting ready to go out all dressed up. They've got to take a picture of them driving a car. They've got to take, it's like, dude, look up from your phone. Get out of your own way. I know when we were in the rehab, one of the biggest downfalls of anybody's sobriety that I constantly seen, and don't get me wrong, I was guilty of doing this too, was people that had been there for about 3 months. They've got that good step into sobriety, and they're on that pink cloud of soberness. And then the next thing you know, they're like, I'm leaving. I got this. I got this. Still to this day, I know if it wasn't for me talking to God on a daily basis and me communing with each and every single one of y'all, I probably would have done slip back into drinking. I probably would have done slip back into doing drugs. You know, that's just the way it is. That's how addiction works. But because of God, and God reminded me every day that I am His child, that's what keeps me sober. To know that God's got a better plan for me than I have for myself helps keep me sober. Knowing that I have a family, a church family, that loves me, that loves seeing the way God works through my life and how God uses me, that lifts me up, that keeps me sober. To know that God has blessed me with a beautiful wife, double the size of my family, to be able to look in those kids' eyes and to sincerely laugh and joke and cut up with them, and knowing that that's all because of God, that's all because of obedience to God, that keeps me sober. That keeps me grounded. And it's never been about anything that I did except for be obedient. Now I want to talk about Satan and his pride for a minute. You know, Satan's downfall was his own pride. He wanted to be in a higher place than God. He wanted to build his kingdom above God. He didn't understand why we were given free will and the angels weren't. And in Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12 through 14, it says, and this was actually a song. If I'm understanding it correctly, the way I read it, this was a song that someone was singing. It says, how you are fallen from heaven, O day star, son of dawn, how you are cut down to the ground, you who laid the nations low. You said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven above the stars of God. I will set my throne on high. I will sit on the mount of assembly in the far reaches of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. Now, that's a short passage. Did you notice how many I's were in there? I will. This is what I'm going to do. You know, one of the most prideful things that I think anybody deals with in this day and age is the fact that I did it. We don't realize how much God actually does in our lives. And by being prideful, we lose sight of that. Pride is considered by some of the most serious of the 7 deadly sins. Pride, once you break it down, can be contributed to being the opposite of all the 10 Commandments. You know, honor thy mother and thy father. Well, I'm grown. I don't have to listen to them. Thou shalt not steal. Well, they have what I want. You know, I could go through all 10 of them, but y'all get what I'm saying. Pride can be the destruction of all 10 commandments. Selfishness is the complete opposite of it. Pride can make people greedy, lustful, gluttonous, lazy, wrathful, and envious. And it can also blind people to the reality and cause them to focus to themselves at the expense of others. You know, I can't say that I know what it's like to be one of these kids nowadays. I can't. But I know when I was growing up, if you didn't have the right shoes or the right clothing, you got made fun of. So what did it make you do? It made you want to go out and get the Nikes. It made you want to go out and get the nice shirts. It made you want to go out and get the nice jeans. Now, y'all have seen how I dress. I obviously was never that way. I never cared about what I had as far as clothing went, but I seen it growing up. I see it. I even see it nowadays. You see kids out there walking around like this because they don't want to, what is it, Allie, you call it? Crease their shoes, crease the toe, what is it? Yeah, they don't want to do creasing because it'll put lines in their shoes. Man, they're just shoes. They're just shoes. Why would you go out and spend $100, $200 on a pair of Jordans? Regular Nikes fit your feet just as fine. You can go to Ross or Burlington and you can get a nice pair of shoes, $30 with a name on it because somebody else didn't want to spend the money on it because they weren't Jordans. Man, them shoes, them clothes, that's what's going to make you prideful in your looks. Pride can also lead to strife. Pride can lead to arguments, wars, divorces, and even church splits. Now, I'll be the first to admit, me and Brandy, I love Brandy to death, we don't argue a lot. But a lot of times when we do, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm perfect. That's why I'm saying this. A lot of times when we do argue, I promise you, you can hear the pridefulness in my voice. That's my downfall. I'm not perfect. I'm still human. I tried to be perfect. You know, there's a lot of divorces that lead to pridefulness. You take the pride out of it, and the marriage will probably be really well. Another one of my downfalls is I'm very prideful in my work. I've gotten better at it. I will say that. I've gotten better at it. Thank God. He works on me daily, especially when it comes to electrical. You know, I guess because, you know, I spent so long trying to break into the industry of doing construction work, and it was always, well, I've got 20 years experience. Well, man, you're only 30. Yeah, I grew up in a family doing this stuff. That was prideful of me. Because I didn't want to take that step-down position as a helper just to get my foot in the door to show them that I did know what I was doing. Now, if I'd have swallowed my pride and been like, you know what, I'll come in and help out. I'll be a helper. If I'd have swallowed my pride, I probably would have gotten into the industry a lot sooner. Pride can also lead to dishonor. It can cause people to take all the credit for their accomplishments and negate God. Now, again, like I said, I wouldn't be the person I am today if it wouldn't have been for God. I wouldn't have been able to navigate to where God's led me had it not been for Him. And that was me having to swallow a lot of pride. I had to swallow pride on a daily basis, it seemed like, when I was in rehab. Robert, you swallow a lot of pride in rehab? Justin, you swallow a lot of pride in rehab? You know, I don't mean to call these guys out. They've been there. They know. It's one of them things where you go into a situation, and after about 3 or 4 months, like I said, you get on that pink cloud of sobriety, and you're bouncing. You're sober. You know a little bit about God, so you're ready to go out and tackle the world. You know, when God told me, when I was in the rehab, and I prayed to Him, and He told me, He said, I promise you, if you do this, I'll restore that relationship between you and your daughter. If I just let Him work that will in my life. It was never said, but I felt it in my heart. That 12-month program, I had to complete it. That was part of the deal. I had to complete that 12-month program. I still had my job when I left. You know, I had a place to rest my head. I had all the reasons in the world to leave. But God had made me a deal. That if I did that, He was going to do this over here. So I had to swallow the pride of thinking that I was good to go, that I was learning more on my own than I was from the program itself. Because even at the end of the day, it wasn't about what I was learning at the program. Now that I look back on it, it had nothing to do with the program. It had nothing to do with the building we were in. It had nothing to do with the rehab. It had to do with the guys that were there, that were learning from each other and teaching one another. Pride can also lead to psychological issues. When people don't live up to their idolized selves, their defenses can collapse, leading to self-loathing, self-pity, and vanity. You know, we see these guys, I'm going to get into vanity real quick before I touch on the other ones. We see these guys that drive around in these big old trucks, super fast sports cars, and a lot of times we see this and we're like, oh man, they're compensating for something. They're compensating for something. That's that pride that's down inside them that makes them want to be vain. Self-pity, when you're constantly having pity parties. Oh, woe is me. I didn't get this over here because of this here. I wasn't able to do this because I wasn't good enough. I didn't pass that test because I wasn't smart enough. That's self-pity. Maybe it wasn't meant to. You know, like I said a minute ago, I could have broke into the construction industry a long time ago had I swallowed my pride. Maybe I wasn't meant to. I don't know. All I know is that God has a plan for me. He's working that plan in my life. Sometimes I go willingly, sometimes it's with reluctance, and He's got to push me. But I do trust every moment of every day that whatever God's doing, it's going to be for my future to be better later on down the road. And it takes a lot of pride swallowing, because a lot of times, you sit there and you think, especially me, a lot of times I'm like, man, I'm not where I want to be. I'm not where I want to be just yet. Yeah, I'm a lot further than what I was, but I'm not where I want to be. That's pride, because it's all about what I want, where I want to be. It's about my plan. It's not about trusting the process. It's definitely about not trusting God's plan. But once you swallow that pride and you're like, all right, God, I know you got this, and I know you're going to put me where you want me. It always works out. One of the most cliche sayings is so true. Some of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers. They grow us. They humble us. And they make us so much better in the future. Which can lead, with self-pity, can lead to self-loathing or self-hate. I see it a lot, and especially in a lot of teenagers nowadays, where we live in a society where the divorce rates are at an all-time high. And these kids will get into a self-pity that their parents aren't together anymore. Then they'll start blaming themselves. And then they start hating themselves. Man, when you're sitting there in self-hatred, how are you expected to love others the way we're called to when you're constantly focused on yourself and that self-hatred for yourself? God, like I said, God does everything to better us in the future. A lot of times we don't know what his plan for us is, and it's not up to us to know what it is. It's just up to us to trust his plan. I want to get into a couple of different types of pride. Pride of concern, which is living in fear of what others think and overvaluing human respect. Man, Proverbs 29, verses 25 through 27 says, fear of man will prove to be a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord is kept safe. Many seek the face of a ruler, but it is from the Lord that a man gets justice. An unjust man is an abomination to the righteous, but one whose way is straight is an abomination to the wicked. When I read that, what I get out of that is misery loves company. If you've got a friend that's mad at somebody else, they're going to try to bring you into that little quarrel that they've got going on and bring you down with them. And worrying about what other people think, who cares? Teens, youth, guys, I want y'all to listen up very closely. Trust me, I went through high school. Don't worry about what the other kids think of you. Because 4 or 5 years down the road, 95% of them ain't going to be there. One rule that I live by, and it has helped me so much, is if it's not going to matter in 5 years, don't waste more than 5 minutes on it. Don't stress on it for more than 5 minutes. The only things in this world that's going to matter in 5 years is my relationship with God and the love that I spread to other people. That's really it. Because in 5 years down the road, they ain't going to remember what kind of shoes I had on my feet. They ain't going to remember the disagreement that we had and what it was over. They're not going to remember what my haircut was like. What they are going to remember What they are going to remember is whether or not if he was a good person. They'll be like, man, you remember that guy? Dude only had $3. I didn't even have no money for lunch. He only had $3, and he split his lunch tray with me. They'll remember stuff like that. They'll also remember if you were one of those types of people that would walk by and slap their lunch tray out of their hand, and that was all they had to eat, and they didn't have any money to go back and get another lunch tray. They'll remember that type of stuff too. So if you come across a problem, and it ain't going to affect your salvation with God and your relationship with him, and it ain't going to affect how people are going to view you in 5 years, don't waste more than 5 minutes on it. Move past it. So what? You failed a test. At least you tried. And adults, same goes for you. I live by it. If I was to wreck my truck, it ain't going to matter in 5 years. So why waste more than 5 minutes on it? What is going to matter in 5 years is how I reacted to it. If I jumped out of the truck because somebody hit me in the back end, I jumped out and was ready to fight, that's going to matter in 5 years. But if I jumped out and was like, you know what, man, we both all right. That metal can be replaced. You good, I'm good. It's all in our reaction to the situation. Don't be prideful with it. Because wasting more than 5 minutes on situations, I honestly believe that can't be prideful. And there's also the pride of sensitivity when your self-love is wounded. 1 John chapter 4, verse 17 through 19 says, "This is how love is made complete among us, so that we will have confidence on the day of judgment. In this world, we are like Jesus. There is no fear of love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love, and we love because he first loved us." Now, this is something that I'm going to touch on that, just a second. Coca-Cola spot. Hey, bills got to get paid, right? I'm shooting for advertisement purposes. So, I've been through 2 divorces. Pretty nasty divorces. I'm not saying I was perfect in those marriages either, but I wasn't a bad guy. I didn't feel like I deserved to be treated the way that I was, but that was all a part of God's plan. Had it not been for those 2 divorces, I wouldn't be the person that I am today, and I wouldn't have the love that I get from Brandy. The love that Brandy gives me, I have no fear to reciprocate that love back to her, to reciprocate the trust that I have for her, or the respect. It was letting go of that fear of being hurt again, because I wanted to protect myself. But through God, I didn't have to. All I had to do was trust him. I had to trust him that he was going to send me the person that he prepared for me, and boy, did he prepare somebody for me. So we're going to jump past that. We're going to go to pride of smugness. This is an excessive desire to gain human respect, such as showing off or overperforming, or being an overachiever, I guess is the best way to put it. And in Proverbs chapter 13, verses 7 through 10, it says, "One pretends to be rich, yet has nothing. Another pretends to be poor, yet has great wealth. The ransom of a man's life is his wealth, but a poor man hears no threat. The light of the righteous rejoices, but the lamp of the wicked will be put out. By insolence comes nothing but strife, But with those who take advice, there is wisdom. Guys, if I walked around puffed up chest and acted like I had the biggest house, acted like I had more money than I knew what to do with, and I went around looking at cars, trucks, what do you think's going to happen? Not everybody out there has the love of the Father in them. A lot of them are snakes. And they're going to try to take advantage of you. They're going to try to get out of your pocket anything and everything they can. If you walk around like you're the smartest person in the world, but yet you don't know your feet from your hands, what does that make you look like? There's another verse in Proverbs, and I don't know can't remember the exact location, but we went over it in the men's Bible study. It is better to be thought of a fool than to open your mouth and prove them right. You know, if I got up on this stage and I acted like I knew everything there was to know about the Bible and I was the best preacher in the world, Lord knows, I have a hard time just even conceiving the fact and accepting the fact that I'm now a pastor. But if I got up here and acted like I was better than Billy Graham, how many people would this church lose? How many online followers would quit following us? How awful would that make not just God, but this church look? Guys, everything that I get up here and say, it has nothing to do with me. I'm just a shell. If I didn't empty myself of myself and ask God to come into me, speak through me and work through me while I'm working on this, oh boy, y'all would all be in trouble because I would lead y'all astray. Now, I have to rely on God to pour into me what he wants conveyed. You know, pride can lead us down long, dark roads alone. Not listening to wisdom that's bestowed on us by others who have walked these roads, like parents or elders who have been put in your path as guardians. Or even if I was to disregard anything that Mr. Robert, Mr. Bob, or Mike Sanders said to me, or Pastor Chris, God, they don't know what they're talking about. Man, I learned a long time ago when I hear people say, man, I wish I was your age again, I'd go back and change some things. At that point, I'm shutting down any thought that's in my head or anything that's about to come out of my voice, out of my mouth, because I've learned. Start listening at that point because they're about to drop some wisdom on you. You guys hear that, youth, teens? Y'all hear that? When y'all hear an older person say, man, I wish I could go back to your age, I would do things differently. Listen to what they're about to say to you, or go back to what they just said to you. Because I promise you, if you listen to it, you take it to heart, God just hit you with some wisdom that a lot of people don't get hit with. You know, if I'd have swallowed my pride years before I actually did and ended up and went to the rehab, how different would my life have been now had I started 10 years earlier? How different would my life be now had I listened to the teachers and the DARE programs and the dog that came in the classroom and said, don't do drugs, just say no. No, but I was prideful. Even as a teen, I was prideful because these guys didn't know. Come on, man, they're old. They don't know. It'll be all right. No, it wasn't, and it didn't turn out all right. It did now. But man, that was a long road, a lot of bumps, a lot of kicking, a lot of crawling. It was hard. But that was my fault. I made life a lot harder than it had to be because of my pride. 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 5 through 7 says, likewise, you who are younger, be subject to the elders. Y'all hear that? You who are younger, be subject to the elders. Clothe yourself, all of you, with humility towards one another. For God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Cast all of your anxiety and worries on him, because he cares for you. Remember when I started this, I said, one of my favorite Bible verses has to do with pride. It's that part right there where it says, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. I love that. When you humble yourselves and you ask for help, or you humble yourselves and you actually listen to the wisdom that's bestowed upon you, man, you learn so much more. And you get through it a lot easier than if you try to do it on your own. You got to swallow that pride, man. That pride it will mess you up. We don't have to walk around with our worries. We don't have to walk around with anxiety or in the middle of depression. Man, we cast that stuff on to God. Give it to him. When you come up here and you drop everything that you have at that cross, leave it there. Don't pick it back up. That's like, man, if I would have went to the cross and I prayed, God, take the taste of liquor away from me. And I walked away, but I was like, hang on a minute, I got to grab this back. Because God can't take that taste of liquor away from me. But he did. I'm telling y'all right now, he did. I can't smell cinnamon, rubbing alcohol, hand sanitizer. These little small things make me sick at my stomach because they smell like alcohol to me. But when I dropped it at that cross, I left it there. I didn't go back and pick it up. When my truck messed up on me, I don't know, we ain't supposed to pray for materialistic things. But man, when my truck messed up on me, I was like, God, what do I do with it? You know, I thought that was a blessing from you, Lord. And it's just sitting out in my driveway. I can't drive it. All I heard was, trust me. Trust me. So I left it sitting. Y'all all know, I left that truck sitting for months, paid on it faithfully still, and couldn't even drive it. But I trusted that God was going to do something with it. I didn't know what he was going to do with it, but I knew he was going to do something with it. And I left it sitting, and I didn't stress about it anymore. I dropped that worry at that cross. I left it with God. I let God worry about it. I knew what I was supposed to do. I let God worry about it. And I'm telling y'all now, for that truck to be as old as it is, with the mileage that it has on it, not to have one single light on in it, man, it's a blessing from God. That wasn't nothing I did. I didn't fix the truck. I didn't stand against the shovel either. I looked to see what it would take to fix it. But I left that with God. Had I carried it around with me and worried about it on my own, thinking I could fix it myself, that'd have been prideful. Robert drove that truck yesterday. Looked at me and said, man, it's a mighty fine truck. Can't even tell it's as old as it is. Now, guys, at this moment, I know I've talked a lot to the youth during this service, but at this moment, I do want to address y'all personally. Pride can make you think God doesn't care or he's not real. Or even that older people don't know what it's like. But I assure you this, that's far from the case. See, the problems y'all may have seen, the problems may have seemed to have changed. But I promise you, we've dealt with them before too. Because they really haven't changed. They're all the same. How is this person going to like me? Do my shoes look good with my pants? And you know, there's some people out there that have to worry about more than that. Are my parents going to be home when I get there? Or are they going to be out somewhere? Are they going to be coherent when I get there? Or are they going to be passed out? Some kids out there have to worry about whether or not if they're going to have something to eat. So I'm telling you right now, what you're facing could be a lot worse. The problems haven't changed. And the reason why the problems haven't really changed is because the solution's always been the same. It's the same problems that you face today is the same as it's always been. But the solution, and I'm telling you now, and y'all listen up, the solution is always going to be Jesus. You may think, oh, well, God ain't my thing. Jesus ain't my thing. What if God thought you wasn't his thing? What if Jesus thought you wasn't his thing? Well, I'm embarrassed to get up and pray in front of people. Well, what if God was embarrassed of you when you got to heaven? Because I'm telling y'all now, heaven and hell, they're both real. You're going to end up at one of the two, and you will talk to God someday. You could talk to him on a daily, get to know him, and let him get to know you. Or you could talk to him on that day of judgment and hear, depart from me, for I never knew you. I think that'd be the scariest thing I've ever heard, is depart from me, for I have never knew you. Thank God I did not die in my addiction. Y'all may think I'm playing when I say this. We all remember Elijah. The boy was like my brother. When he came to me, and I had the dream of him, and he told me he could see hell. It was right across from heaven, and the gates were wide open. I didn't feel like it was a warning to me. I felt like it was just him telling me, man, the gates are wide open. People are flooding through there because they're full of pride. Oh, God ain't real. No, I'm telling y'all now, he's real. I was just like a lot of other people. When people told me, I talked to God, I seen Jesus, I hear from God. These people were crazy. I'm telling you, this is exactly how I felt. These people were crazy. This is pride talking through me. These people are crazy. They don't know how to differentiate their imagination from reality. Then it happened to me. And I know how to tell my imagination from reality. I know the vision I had when I was sitting on the swing talking to Jesus was real. I know every time that God spoke to me was real. Even the dream with Elijah was real. See, a lot of y'all sitting out here, a lot of the youth and adults, you know, I'm addressing the youth. I'm going to go ahead and tell you. When this was put on me, it was put on me for the youth. God heard and seen what was in your heart. He already knew your desires of your heart. He put in your life what you needed up until this point. Alabama, he knew you wanted a mom. Gave her to you. Austin, Gavin, he knew y'all needed a dad. He knew y'all needed direction. Well, guess who he gave to you? Gannon, he knew that you needed joke and love. He gave it to you. You got a love here. Dude, you're like my little nephew. Guys, God knew what y'all wanted. He knew what y'all needed. He gave it to you. You know, some of you may have found yourself happier than you've ever found yourself in your whole entire life, or happier than you've been in a long time. I know I am. You find the people that are in your life are the people you longed for. Now, here's a question I want y'all to think about. What about the blessings you've found in your life since you've been coming to church? Now, I really want y'all, I can't answer that question for y'all. I know my blessings. I wake up every day not worrying about what I did the night before. I wake up every day not scrounging for a bottle of whiskey or for a joint or for something that'll make me feel not me. I love feeling me now. Hey guys, I'm going to end this, but teens, I'm going to urge y'all to swallow your pride today. Come down here, hit your knees. You may not have anything that you need to pray about right now. At least thank God for the things He's given you. Swallow your pride. Get out of your own way. Be thankful to God. Thank Him for His blessings. Thank Him for them. If I was to give one of y'all $10 and you was just like cool and you walked away with it, then tomorrow I gave you another $10 and you was just like cool and you walked away with it. Third day, I give you another $10 and you're like, where? You walk away with it. How long do you think I'm going to continue to bless you if you don't thank me? Guys online, I really appreciate you joining us. I hope this resonated with one of y'all, at least one of you. Again, I know I addressed the youth a lot in this, but when it was given to me, that was really who it was given to me for. You know, adults, yeah, we all struggle with pride, but y'all are strong enough in y'all's walks to know what to do with it. These kids aren't. Guys online, remember we got the Hope Dealers, we got our Bible studies. Like, share, follow the pages, share the live streams. You never know whose life you're going to change. But I'm going to sign out on the online and get ready to do our altar call. Guys online, I really appreciate you joining us. And as Pastor Chris says, remember, I love you. God loves you. There ain't nothing you can do about it. Peace out.